All right. There's my dog, which is not part of the presentation. All right, folks, so thank you again for being here. Julie, I can see your face, so I'm going to ask you just a head nod. Can you see my screen? Perfect. All right, so my name is Jordan Turpin. I'm the person who you've heard lots from this year, last year. I started with the fund in November of 2020, and 5x5 and TAG was the first project I started on. So this, I feel will always hold a special place in my heart for a lot of reasons, but that being one of them, because it was really the first thing I really dove into here at the fund. So I'm the impact coordinator, and I am the primary point person for all things 5x5 and TAG. A quick fund for the arts update. For those of you who've been around for a while, if you worked with Kat Abner, Kat Abner was the vice president of community impact. She left the fund in June for an exciting new opportunity. So right now, in the interim, I'm always the point person for this program, but if you have any other community impact needs, reach out to me, or if you have any Fund for the Arts needs, just contact me and I can direct you to where you need to go. So we are hiring for that position, and I'll be sure to make some introductions when that spot has been filled. Questions for today. I will take time for questions at the end because I've got share screen and recording and all these logistics going on. Feel free to blurt out questions. I'm totally fine with that. Or if you are like me and don't like blurting out, but really want to get that, don't want to forget your question, feel free to type them in the chat. I'll be sure to answer questions that came through the chat at the end. So today we are combining 5x5 and teacher arts grants. Even though they're two separate grant opportunities, they're overall the same. There's a lot of similarities. So there's just some few differences. So we're kind of putting them together, but if there's ever any question as to some specificity between the two, feel free to ask. But for the most part, like the programs and the structure and the process is all the same. So a little bit more about that. Overall, both programs are directly connected to core learning outcomes and complement what students are learning in the classroom. They both accomplish that. So some of the differences between the two. So 5x5 exists to provide funding to elementary school to enhance their classroom instruction for students in kindergarten through 5th grades. The goal of 5x5, so like why 5x5, kind of a weird name, right? The goal is that students will participate in 5 arts education experiences by the time they leave 5th grade, so 5x5. This opportunity is for elementary schools in Jefferson County Public Schools and New Albany Floyd County Schools. So if you're in Jefferson County, if you're an elementary school in JCPS or New Albany Floyd County School, you want to apply for 5x5. If you're not in that bucket, maybe you're K through 5 in one of our greater Louisville counties, or you are middle school or high school, you want to look at teacher arts grants. So teacher arts grants provide funding to K through 12 teachers in schools to enhance the classroom experience and instruction. So this is K through 12 schools in Bullitt, Jefferson, Oldham, Shelby, and Spencer counties in Kentucky, as well as Clark and Floyd counties in Indiana. So really, again, the key differences here are the grade levels and the county in which your school resides. A quick note about COVID-19. So we are continuing to monitor COVID-19 protocols and work with all of our greater Louisville school districts to determine whether or not programming can be offered in person at any point, what all that looks like. And that includes mask mandates. So most, if not all of our arts providers have been continuing to wear masks despite vaccine status when working with young people. We will continue to monitor and abide by mask requirements. However, details such as these should be confirmed and talked through with your arts provider after awards are announced to ensure that everyone is on the same page. The listings that our arts providers have provided in the brochure include a variety of options that are virtual and or in person. So we will work with you and the arts provider throughout the school year to transition programs as needed. So whether that means transitioning to virtual or transitioning to in-person. So before you apply, be sure to look over the 2021-2022 offerings in the offering brochure. This brochure is available on our website. That's what it looks like, the cover of it. It's available on our website and it's linked within the applications. I do want to point out that this is a very large file. So if you know, like my internet at home is lousy, but you're going to be in the school and it's better, or vice versa, you might want to consider opening it somewhere that you know there's a more consistent internet speed. So just know it might take a moment to load when you're trying to open it. You may apply for offerings which are eligible for your appropriate program, 5x5 or tag, included in the brochure. So let me say that kind of differently. The only programs that you can apply for 5x5 or tag must come from this brochure. So, and this brochure contains both 5x5 and tag offerings. So we're going to look here in a minute how you know which is which, but just so you know, they're all the same thing. We don't, I think years ago, I think we had all these things separated out, but this year 5x5 and tag, they live together because again, there's a lot of crossover. So yeah, we'll go over the location of where can't talk, the 5x5 or tag eligibility is located, but it will be listed both in the at a glance page and then up top in the individual offering name listing. So at the beginning of the brochure, I think it's on technically the third page of the brochure, there is a contact sheet. We ask that you contact the arts providers directly with any questions you have about 5x5 or tag offerings specifically, meaning you have really specific questions about the content or the logistics. Some arts providers require you contact prior to even applying for mileage confirmation and other details. And you'll know if that's required by reading the offering description. So if an offering mentions confirming with an arts provider before requesting the experience, please refer back to this page for the organization's contact email and phone number. And you can also always just ask me. And if I can't answer your question, if it really needs to go through the arts organization, I can always connect you. I do want to also point out, so for those of you who've been around, once awards are made, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, once award announcements are made, we provide you with a contact sheet for the arts organizations. I will make sure, because there's a lot of transition happening across the whole country, right? But even within our arts organizations, there's been a lot of shifting, a lot of new jobs opening up, a lot of change there. So I will update this. This is for your use now as you're applying, but once award time rolls around, I'll make sure you have an up-to-date version of this so you can move forward with scheduling. So the at a glance section at the beginning of the brochure can be used like a table of contents or a glossary. These pages before the experience descriptions can help you search by discipline, academic content connections, or grade to find the program best suited for your classroom. So this is really a great way. So for example, we'll use the top one here, Circus Act. It's 5x5 and tag, so great. Regardless of what you're applying for, you know that that's going to be applicable. There are some definitions up top. It's at the top of each at a glance page to help you know what these little like acronyms or letters are in the type column. So you might really want a multi-session experience for your students. You're going to be looking for R. So I'll go through these really quickly. So FT stands for field trip. Students travel to the venue in person or virtually. P stands for performance. So the arts provider travels to the school in person or virtually. R is a residency. So it's a multi-session experience, again, in person, virtual, or a combination of both. And then we have W for workshop, which is similar to residency, but it's just a one session experience. So the big differences between residencies and workshops are how many sessions are happening. Workshop is one, residency is multiple, more than one. So that's what the type column is. And then we have all of these content topics that are addressed and what the different experiences address. That's also noted here. So if you're looking for, I really need something for my science class, you'll want to look in the science column. We have the grades that it is applicable to, the max student per experience, and then what page you can find the information on. So that's kind of a rundown on the at a glance page. The only thing I didn't mention is that it is divided, just as the whole brochure is, by discipline, arts discipline, I should specify. So we'll start with the Circus Act, then we'll go into dance, film, etc. So once you've kind of looked through that, or maybe you skipped that because you're like, I'm going to read everything, which more power to you. There are a lot of listings. I think we have close to, I think we're around 200 offerings. So lots to choose from. This is essentially what each page looks like. So again, we've got them divided by arts discipline, and then right underneath the arts discipline is what type of offering it is, if it's a residency, a field trip, a performance, a workshop. And then I want to go over some key locations on these pages that you're going to want to just keep in mind as you're applying, because these are things that are asked on the application. So we start with the offering title. This is specifically asked at the application. And I should note, we are also going to walk through the application. So I'll show you actually on the application, like what I'm talking about here in a moment. But we've got the experience title up top, followed by the arts provider name. So when the application asks what is the name of the experience, you want this big one right up top in black. When it asks you who is the arts provider, you want who's right underneath. This is the location I just mentioned. So in the at a glance section, it says whether it's 5x5 or tag or one or the other. But then we also include it next to the arts provider. I don't know if you can see my mouse. I will say most of the offerings are both 5x5 and tag. However, we do have a handful that you will see just say tag or just say 5x5. And then if you go down to the colored, since I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, I'm going to use like references. So the green box is what I'm referring to now, where it says experience details. This tells you right underneath that, it'll tell you if it's in person or a virtual offering. So we've got a couple different ways something can be virtual. There's virtual live stream, which is what we're doing right now. It's happening virtually, but it's happening live. Then we also have virtual pre-recorded. That is a virtual, like for example, a link to a recorded content. The experience happened, it was filmed, it was saved, and then it was dispersed for your use during, your class time. So for example, the Louisville Ballet's Nutcracker that I think last year was a virtual pre-recorded. So that's kind of what that means. The application doesn't actually ask you to specify if it's a live stream or a pre-recorded. It just asks if you're applying for virtual or in person. And the reason we ask that on the application there's some cost differences to those as well. So we want to make sure that we're, when awards happen, that it's the appropriate amount. So also in the green box, I'm referring to this Circus Act listing. You've got your grades, so what grades it's applicable to. Program cost versus student cost. This is also very important for the application. The application will ask you, does this experience have an experience cost or a student cost? And you might look at that and be like, how do I know? This is how you know. In the offering description, it'll say, if it's a program cost, it'll say program cost, and it'll give you that cost. That means that it is this cost. So for Circus Act, it's $420 for a class of 30. If you have 31 to 60 students that you're applying for, you're just going to want to double that when you, or do the respective math when you fill it out. So that just means you're going to pay you're not going to pay, you'd be awarded $420 for 30 students. But if you have 31 to 60, $840, and so on and so forth. So it doesn't mean if you have more than 30, you're out, you can't apply. It just means you're going to have to double that up in the math section. Is that a question? Okay. So then also we have student ticket costs. So that was program cost. Ticket cost is what it sounds like. It's like if you buy a ticket to a show, you pay per person or per student in this example. So it'll tell you how much it is per student. I think we'll find out in a minute when we walk through the application. I can't remember, that might auto calculate on the application, but we'll walk through that shortly. So yeah, that's how you know if it's program cost or ticket cost and what the respective prices are. You'll notice too that there is some chaperone information if that is applicable. I think the application asks, it's an optional field because not everyone is applying for a field trip, but if you are applying for a field trip, it'll have you, the application asks how many chaperones you have coming with your students for that field trip, so we can figure out what costs are there. We have maximum number of students at cost. Sometimes you'll also see minimum number of students at cost. I want to point out what NA means. It means that the organization reported not applicable, meaning that there are no limits. You might want to reach out to them to triple check that, but it's not mandatory, because we will, once these things come in, if they've said NA, we'll work out those numbers on the back end. So, but you'll find out, I just wanted to point out, like, NA means it's not applicable. But if there is a maximum number, it'll be listed. Experience length. So residency looks a little bit different than the rest of them. This 4 here means the number of sessions, and then how many minutes are each session. Some of the listings actually have this 4 broken down in a separate like listing. It'll say number of sessions per residency, I think is how it's worded. It'll tell you this is going to be, we're going to meet 4 times, or it's going to meet 3 times, or however many times. And then it'll separate, those are 3, or in this case, 4 50-minute sessions. So residency is a little bit different because there are multiple experiences. The rest of them just say experience length, and that's just because they're one-offs. That's how long it takes. Neither of these examples that I have up include additional time, but that is something we include if the provider needs extra time to set up or take down. That does not always mean that the class very rarely means that the class needs to be present for that. It might just mean that the arts organization needs to be let into the school, if that's even a possibility, or whatever it is, they need to be let in X amount of minutes before the class happens to get ready. So it's not necessarily like class time, but those are some of the details that would need to be worked out with the arts organization. What else? Same thing with cleanup time. So if there's any takedown, sometimes if it's a virtual experience, you will want to take that into consideration, because like there are some art kit experiences where the arts provider provides the classroom with an art kit. So you would obviously want to allot time for your students to do the necessary cleanup and takedown. But I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, that has been taken into consideration in the offering, so that the actual experience length might be a little bit shorter, so that way you have time for your students before and after to do what they need to do. Again, we have content areas. Program availability is just important to note as you're filling this out for your own planning. We do, again, I'll go through the program schedule. It'll be more important when you're communicating with the arts organizations after awards have been announced, to just keep note of that. But that's really a detail that's not super important for the application, but just good to have in the back of your brain and moving forward. Includes means what kind of learning activities comes with this. So some of our providers offer like lesson plans. So if you're wanting to integrate the arts with your class moving forward, there's supplementary materials for you, like a little toolkit, if you will, for arts integration. So these are examples that I have up. So other learning activities means that stage 1 has come up with something else that is not specific, and they will make sure to communicate with that with you. Louisville Ballet has post-assessments, so they'll help provide post-assessment materials. So I think the key selections are pre-assessment, post-assessment, lesson plans, and other learning activities. Sometimes, I think most of the time, if they've selected other, you can pretty much discern what that means by reading the description. They've included like what all the experience comes with outside of just the experience. So that's what that means. We've got listed the backpack outcomes, any applicable standards, and then more information. These are not hyperlinks, so unfortunately you would have to type it in or copy and paste. But the more information is a link from the arts organization. So if you're just curious about the program from the arts organization standpoint, you can check that out. That's really just for your knowledge. So you might want to leave your offering description open while you're completing your application, because like I said, things like program cost, student cost, there's some specific questions on the application, and you just want to make sure you input correctly. That can be found directly from this listing. So once you've figured out if you're 5x5 or tag, you've looked over the offerings, and it's ready to apply. It's application time. I know this is the third bullet down, but I want to actually jump to the liaison situation. So all applications should be submitted by your school's liaison. This is especially important for 5x5 schools. Some tag schools, this is another one of those weird, like, there's some slight differences between 5x5 and tag. So 5x5, each 5x5 school must have a liaison that will serve as the primary contact between Fund for the Arts and the school. This person should coordinate with classroom teachers utilizing the programming and manage scheduling and grant reports. If you are a tag school and this is possible, we encourage you to do this as well, because the importance of the liaison is it's really to streamline communication between school and fund, because the grant software, you can only have one person in the system at a time. You all can share login information, that's fine with us. But and I'm just gonna say Julie, because she's the first person I see. If Julie completes the application, that's all that exists in the grant system. So if I were also a teacher at Julie's school, Jordan cannot, if Jordan creates a login, I'm not going to see anything that Julie's working on. It doesn't, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. So again, we don't care if you want to share login information. That's totally fine. Just make sure everyone, the communication on your end internally is clear, that if, not to make edits, or if you make edits, make sure you save it, like what those, because once someone has saved something, it's not like a Google Doc. It's done once they've saved it. That's kind of why that is the way it is. And it really does help streamline the communication between the two entities, and really does cause less error between the two entities. So that's kind of why that is a thing. Tag is only different because of how some of the school systems are set up. I don't think Susan Stewart is on this call, but I'm going to use her as an example because she's a perfect example. Susan applies for multiple schools because of what her position is. So that's kind of why it's handled a little bit differently based off of the school system. So we encourage everyone to have a liaison. If you're 5x5, it is required. Tag, we just encourage you to do so if it's possible. So I jumped ahead to that third bullet. So kind of backtracking to the first one, submit one application for each offering that you are requesting. So again, I mean, it's kind of all connected, liaison thing. So if you've got multiple, say you've got 3 third grade classes who want to do Tricky Fox is the first thing that popped in my head. So that you want the Tricky Fox, I think that's Squall's Puppeteers, I think. You want that experience. You're going to apply one time for the entire third grade, the 3 third grade classes, and it's all going to be in one. You wouldn't do like one application per third grade class. And with that said, your school can request as many offerings as you would like. With that, what did I miss? Oh, a big one. All applications must have principal approval before they're submitted. And likewise, if you are a principal on this call, please make sure if you're submitting on behalf of the school, just make sure that the classroom teacher who's going to be the point of contact, if that is the case, if you're not going to be the point of contact, but there will be a teacher as point of contact, please just make sure that they are looped in and know what the program is and that what's going on with the application, just to avoid surprises and scheduling conflicts down the road. With all of that said, we're actually going to walk through the application. I want to point out before we dive in that you do not have to complete your application in one sitting, which is nice. So that's kind of why you're going to see 2, it's actually on the screen, and you'll see 2 buttons on the web page. Click here to start a new application, and then click here to access a saved application. There are some key important differences between those 2. So we will explain, you'll see why momentarily. And jump into the grant system. You're going to see my perfect dog once more. Okay. So as this is thinking, so when you go to the Fund for the Arts website, I'm going to take you basically from ground zero. So you open up your browser and you go to the Fund for the Arts website. Under Apply for Funding, you want to click for schools and community centers. So schools and community centers, that's where you want to be. And 5x5 and tag are the first two. So we're going to walk through, we will do both. I'm going to click 5x5 because it's the first one. We'll talk through it because everything that's on 5x5 is also on tag, but then we'll also go through tag just so I can highlight the key, very few brief differences of the applications. So 5x5, you click apply. There's all this information that we're talking about right now, with links internally for the brochure and the contact sheet that we talked about, all of that fun stuff, the timeline, which we're going to get to after we talk about the application. All of that information is on this page. Tag looks similar. And then underneath, again, we've got the brochure link, we've got the contact list. And then here are those two links I just talked about. So we have start a new application, access a saved application. If you're coming in for the very first time this year, you haven't started anything, there have been a few overachievers who already submitted some applications, but if you have not, this is your first time, you want to click here to start a new one. It'll take you to the grant system. So if you are returning, if you were here, if you were around last year or previously, you can go ahead and use your login information to log in. If you are brand new this year, you want to click new applicant first. And then you just want to set up a profile really quickly. So you just need to do your email, make sure you confirm your email and set your password and then hit continue. And then you'll be able to log in with those credentials. I already have an account, so I'm going to go back and just sign in. Okay, so because I made it do too many things, it took me to this wild looking page. Kind of ignore that momentarily. This is what you would see if you had clicked the second link. If you're just now logging in, it'll actually open the application directly for you. So you don't have to worry about that big craziness that just popped up. So the application, after you log in for the first time, it'll just open up. The first page, again, it's everything we're talking about right now. All the details. So if you missed anything, you know, you need to double check anything, this is all the instructions on the first page. The actual first page of application, first page of information you're actually going to need input is on the school information. And I apologize, I just realized this is likely small for you all, so I'm going to zoom in. Okay. So under school information, if at any point you have questions, feel free to click this grants@fundforthearts.org link and your email will open up and that'll come to me directly. That's listed throughout the application just so that if you really run into anything, you can access us immediately. School information, basic information, school name, select your school system. So again, we're in the 5x5 application, so you only have two options, which are the two options that 5x5 is eligible for. This is one of those areas we'll look at tag. School street address, city, state. Again, it can only happen in Kentucky or in Indiana, so those are your only two options. And then your zip code. We also ask for your county. We ask for your Louisville Metro School Council District, rather. If you don't know what your council district is, we have a link with instructions on how to find that. And then you'll just select that here. If you're an Indiana school applying for 5x5, you can hit not applicable. School phone number, school mission or focus. And then we added this Title I question. It has nothing to do with what gets funded, but all to do with, are we awarding the appropriate amount of dollars to your school? Because some programs that are offered have discounts for Title I schools. So that's why that's there. That's on 5x5 and tag, so yes or no. We ask for principal information, prefix, first name, last name, suffix, email address, all basic information. And then we ask for your liaison information, same information about their name. Are they a classroom teacher? Are they a third grade teacher? Are they a music teacher? What is their title, email address, and phone number? You'll notice down here, this is what I was talking about. You don't have to do it all in one sitting, which is great. You can hit save and finish later. When you do that, if you want to keep working, like right now, I want to keep going because I'm showing this to you all. I don't want to click that. So you don't have to click save until you are ready to save. Otherwise, you're going to get kicked out. So this is, you want to click save and finish later if you truly want to save and finish later. You can click next. to go on to the next page, or you can click on these tabs up top. Again, we've got contact, easily accessible. We also included the brochure. If you don't already have it up, this link will take you to the brochure. Those are just some navigational things for you to know about. So this is where that brochure is going to really come in handy. So what is the name of the offering you were requesting? That was the very first, the big black title up top, each description. That's what you want to input there. Which arts group provides this offering? That's the next line in the offering list in big black letters. So looking for Lilith, stage 1, Squalus, that's who you put there. What grades are you applying for? Again, this is one that's different from TAG because again, 5x5 is for kindergarten through 5th grade. If you've gotten to this point and you're like, why is 6th grade not listed? I hate to break it to you, you will have to exit that and go to the TAG application. That's where you will get 6th grade. What type of offering is this? So I ran through field trip, performance, workshops, and residencies in that type column on the at a glance page. That's what this is. You'll select which it is here. We ask for what format of this offering you're applying for. Some offerings are virtual only, some are in-person only, some could be either. So we ask for you to differentiate. Again, that is subject to whatever we can actually do. So if we can't be in the schools or schools can't travel to the experience, it'll shift, or we'll just have to communicate about the next best steps in supplemental programming there. Enter how many students are participating. Again, this note is just to be mindful about what the maximum number of students is in the listing. And then again, mentions that if you have over 30 students, that doesn't mean you have to do a whole new application. It just means you're going to have to double up on your math. In summary, that's what the note says. And then here's the question about the chaperones attending the field trips. Then it goes into offering cost. This is the question I mentioned as we walked through the description about program cost versus student cost. So in that description, I think it's in the colored box. It'll say program cost, dollar amount, or student cost, X amount of dollars per student. So that's where you'll select. If it says it's a program cost, you'll do program cost and student or ticket cost for that one. Enter the price. If it's a program cost, you'll put 0 for the student cost. And vice versa. If it has a student cost, you'll put 0 for the program cost. I skipped over something important. Oh, the calculator. So let's do that. Let's go back up. I'm going to show you the calculator real quick. Students. So we're going to say we have we'll say we have notes, and where is that calculator? Okay, per student. So we're going to do student or ticket cost, and we're going to do dollars per student. This will auto calculate, but you have to do just like this much extra work. You just have to click the calculator button. So just make sure you click the calculator button. It'll do this thing where you think, oh, did it save it or not? And you'll scroll down and you'll see that it auto-calculated here. So that's how that works. And I even included a note saying that you must click that calculator button for the calculator to work. We talked about program cost. So if I just did all that work, if it's a student ticket cost, there is no program cost because it was a student ticket cost. So I'm going to put 0. Bus costs, again, assuming that we can do this in-person situation. We have whether or not you're going to need funding to cover the buses. You'll say yes or no. Give us the cost of one bus, how many buses you're going to need, and then again, the auto calculation. Make sure you click the calculator and that'll populate for you. Additional mileage is new this year. Well, definitely compared to last year. I'm not sure about previously, but some of the arts providers, provided that they can come into schools, they have additional mileage needs. So we cover that in the award, but it is of course an additional award amount than the actual experience cost. So this just asks, does the provider need additional mileage? So this is not your bus cost. This is, did they charge something to come out to your school? Yes or no? And then that you'll know that because it's listed in the offering description. And then we ask what the total cost of additional mileage is. So you'll just have to, this one, I'm sorry, it's not a calculator one, but you'll just have to do a little bit of math on that end, but feel free to reach out if you need help on that piece. A very important note is that, again, I think I mentioned this before, you may have to contact the arts organization to finalize mileage before requesting the experience. So just know that if you're waiting till closer to September 10th when this is due, I would advise against that in case you need to reach out to your arts organization. So that way you are clear on what the additional costs are. So then at the end here, we've got total funds requested. So you'll take your ticket cost, whatever that ended up being, add the bus cost and add the additional mileage. And then this is actually the total funding requested. This is what's going to come to the fund and what we will award or decline, but try to award. So that's where you'll put the total funding request. The last page of actual information that we need from you all is additional information if you're requesting more than one offering. And if you are, what priority is this? Do you really want this one to happen, or you're submitting 10 applications and, because you're just hoping to get, whatever you can get. So where does this fall? Is this a lower priority, higher priority? We do take that into consideration as we piece the puzzle together. So it is important. What time during the school year your offering takes place. This is happening at the beginning of the school year, so we don't expect you to know with 100% certainty, but this is just a general idea to make sure as we get the applications in, we try to make sure that what you're thinking is aligning with the availability of the program. So again, that information, we do ask you to double check with the offering description that it is available at the time you're thinking, but there are multiple layers there where we try to catch those little things as they come through. And then that's another area when you're communicating with the arts organization for the program schedule, that's really when you'll settle on dates and whatnot. Are you applying for an offering that will include classroom teachers other than your own? So back to my earlier example, if you're applying for 3 third grade classes, you're just one of those third grade teachers, you would say yes. If you're one teacher and you're only applying for your class, you would hit no, because it's just for you, just for your class. That's what that means. We just ask to make sure you've approved this with your principal. And then we ask if you've communicated with the arts group providing the program about the program request. If your experience, this might not be applicable to you, so there is an NA option. This just means that if the arts provider has required per the description that you communicate before requesting, this is just one of those checklist questions of have you done that if they ask for it, yes or no. And then if they didn't, you just hit NA. And that's it for the application. So the last page is review and submit. This is another thing I kind of like that it does. It's kind of annoying when you're trying to show an example, but it shows a really great example because it's going to tell me that I missed all of these fields. So if you missed something, but you've actually been inputting information, rather, it'll tell you. There'll be something in red that's like, oops, you actually missed this required field. So that's what that is. I didn't do anything. So, but you will have to fill those in before it'll actually let you submit the application. So again, it shows you what you missed. These buttons will look, I scrolled all the way to the bottom to show you a key location here. When everything has been input and is ready to go, you will have a submit button. It's not visible because I haven't done that work. You want to click submit to actually submit your application. This is very important because sometimes folks enter save and finish later, or save or update, and think that they have submitted their application. But if you have not actually clicked submit, it's not submitted. So just submit equals submit. Click the submit button for your application to be submitted. And then a second kind of indicator of whether or not you've done that is you should get an email to your email address saying, this has been received. So if you don't receive that, reach out to me. It could be in your spam or junk folder, but you can always ask me if you're not sure if it went through or not, and I can double check that for you. So that is that's the tag or the 5x5 application. Very quickly, because most of the fields are the same for tag. I do want to show you tag just to go over the very few differences. But just know that most of those fields are the same. So teacher arts grants page, same thing, goes through all of the information that we're going over now and how tag is different from 5x5. Your brochure, your contact list, your tag application. So with the 5x5 example, I did start a tag application. Well, if you actually did save and finish later, like I've mentioned, you're going to click here to access a saved tag application. If you haven't logged in for the day, like I have, you'll have to log in first, and then you'll get this page more or less. Mine has a lot more stuff in it, but you'll look for the application that you've started under here. So we're looking for the tag application 2021-2022. Click on that, and there you are. So just like 5x5, it actually starts with an instructions page, and then it dives into the school information. All of the school information stuff is the same. School name, school system. You see now that it has expanded. Address, city, state. Also, we're only in Indiana and Kentucky, so those are still your only two options. Zip code, county, Louisville Metro District, same thing as the other application. If you're not in JCPS, not in Louisville Metro area, not applicable. Phone number, mission focus, Title I. Again, Title I is solely so we can align the dollar amount with what you're requesting because of some discounts that are open to Title I schools. Your principal information. And then instead of liaison, the verbiage is just a little bit different here because as I went through when I talked about the liaisons, liaisons aren't always possible for tag schools. So the person who is submitting the application, this person by proxy becomes the point person. So this is the person that's going to really get all of the communications related to tag. Offering information, all the same stuff we just went through. The name, the arts group, you see now it's open all the way to 12th grade. The type, in-person or virtual, how many students, how many chaperones if you're selecting a field trip. One thing I didn't point out, the little red asterisk, it means required. So those are the fields that are going to populate on that last page in red if you haven't done it. But then other things like if offering is a field trip, you might have selected a residency. So of course that's optional because that doesn't apply to you. The cost, all the cost stuff is exactly the same as we just walked through. So program cost or student cost. This I will have to update. There is no offering list, so I will get that off of there. Last year we did have because COVID hit, we had a Google sheet that was the brochure. So ignore that little column U and I'll get that taken off the application. Per student cost, all the same. If you use a calculator, don't forget to click the calculator. Input program cost if you have one, input 0 if you had a student cost. Bus is all the same. If you need them, how many, what's the cost, additional mileage, same stuff. Total funds requested, same thing. Do the math of all the above and enter that number here. And then the additional information, that is all the same as well. So those are the only some slight differences, but largely the same application. So I'm going to exit that. And before we wrap up for questions, I will go over the timeline. That did not open where I wanted it to. Okay, timeline. The applications are open now. They are due by 5 p.m. on Friday, September 10th. This is important. It's not just an arbitrary date and time. I do a lot of catch up on the weekends. So, and it's such a tight, there's so many applications that come through. This is one of those things that I'm working the full time to piece the puzzle together. So please get that in there by 5 p.m. on Friday, September 10th. Again, we have like a 2-week turnaround time to piece the puzzle together. So funding for this program, so 5x5 and TAG, both programs are made possible by restricted donor dollars, meaning that donors have given to the fund specifically for 5x5 or specifically for TAG or specifically for both. And they usually have, there's a lot with like very specific restrictions. There's a lot with specific school restrictions, specific neighborhood, a lot of like very like specific things. So it's really is, when I say it's a puzzle, it is a puzzle. So we've got a set amount of dollars that we can use for these programs, and we've got some clear directions on where it needs to go. So from there, we try to ensure that everyone has, of course, at least one experience. And we try to match it up as best as we can, so you can get as much as you want or need for your students. Unfortunately, we can't award everything, but we do try to get you at least, like I said, one or more programs. So those award notices will be sent by the end of day on September 24th. Those notices will come via email to the principal and the primary teacher contact or the liaison. So we try to leave principals out of it. I know for TAG specifically, there's a few principals who apply and manage the grant. So of course, if you're that person, if the principal is the primary point person, of course, I'm going to keep bugging you. But if you are the teacher filling it out, I will only include principals on big things like award notices or anything that we just really need to make sure that the school's attention is on. Otherwise, it's mostly me and the teacher, whoever applied. Programs may begin after scheduling with the arts organization, September 27th through May 31st. So that's really the big window. I put September 27th, even though it's highly unlikely that you would pick up on September 27th because you have to get your program schedules first. But just as a general idea, so basically from September 27th, like, you know what your options or what's been awarded. You've got the information to contact the arts organizations, and you all can hit the ground running with all of the programs being wrapped up by the end of the school year on May 31st. Program schedules that I've talked about a lot, those are due Monday, October 25th. Program schedules are a brief form in the grant system which asks when the program will take place. You must talk with your arts organization or your arts provider before filling this out. This can be, we understand, I mean, especially as COVID is ever evolving, we understand things change. Life happens, plans change. This is really just to ensure that you have communicated with the arts organization. There's a plan in place. Some experiences, it doesn't matter. Like, it could be a link to a video and you can use it whenever. So like, that doesn't really matter. But then other things where the arts provider needs to be actually present, or a lineup teaching artists or whatever it may be, we just implement the program schedules to ensure that there's been communication between school and arts provider, and that you all are on their calendar, because their calendars are tight and they fill up fast, just like your all's are. So that's really why it's not something to majorly stress over. If you know, like, it could be pretty vague. I haven't built out the program schedule for this year yet, but it's usually very brief. And if it needs to be vague, like, it's going to have January 2022. I mean, that could be the date. So if you don't know exactly like these dates, times, it could be vague like that. I will say we didn't get to do a lot of this last year because of COVID, and we'll just have to assess this moving forward. I know in the past we've used these program schedules also to coordinate donor visits or Fund for the Arts visits to the school to see the program in action. We're just gonna have to play that one by ear based on COVID restrictions and all of that. So that's another way in which we use the program schedules. But if we need more refined dates, you can let me know when you have them, and or I will reach out specifically. So again, program schedules, it is a requirement, but nothing to overly stress about. None of this is anything to overly stress about. And if you're stressing, contact me. We can work through it. Final reports or impact surveys are due in the grant system by the end of the school year. So we ask that all of them be in by Tuesday, May 31st. With that said, we ask that they're in by that date, but really 30 to 60 days after the experience is over, just to take that off of your plate and our plates and everyone's plates for a big rush at the end of the school year. Within 30 to 60 days of your program being completed, go ahead and finish that impact survey. And then the absolute latest would be May 31st. What else? Oh, program schedule and impact survey links, all of that I just talked about, all of that information will be sent in the award packet PDF that comes with your award email. So don't worry about needing to know exactly the who, what, when, where, why, how of all of that. We will send you all of that information when we send out award notifications. So that's just a general timeline for you to know. And then all applications, again, are to be submitted in the grant system by 5 p.m. on Friday, September 10th. And with that, I'm gonna stop blabbing and take a break for questions. I am gonna exit the screen, so I just wanna verbally say grants@fundforthearts.org comes to me. You are also more than welcome to contact me directly at jturpin, Turpin, at fundforthearts.org. And then also phone number 502-882-8695. That is an office phone number. So I'm going to actually get out of the screen share. Questions in the chat. Can private schools get tag or 5x5? Private schools would be tag. Are applications determined first come, first served? No, Julie. So applications, it is my goal. So last year I came in during the CAT had already started the process of 5x5. That CAT had already pieced the puzzle together. So I got to do the fun stuff of saying, hey, here's what you got. So it is my goal. We'll see how it goes, to look at the applications as they come in to make sure all the information that we need is there, but that's it. So it's solely for like data cleanliness. Other than that, they are all compiled and aggregated after September 10th, which is why that date is important, because that's a, like I said, big old puzzle to piece together.
Can't even imagine.
Yeah. Like I said, I didn't get to do that part last year, so we will see. I know you can apply for over 5 grants. Does that mean you could be awarded more than 5? Yeah, okay. Yeah, so you can apply for as many grants as you want to apply for. And yes, you could be awarded more than 5. It really just comes down to how much money we have. So yeah, you can definitely, I don't know off the top of my head how many, like the most a school got last year, but there were multiple. A lot of schools, I mean, if you applied for multiple, you generally got multiple. I think most, if not all the schools that only applied for one, or most, if not all the schools that got just one, only applied for one, is what I'm trying to say, I think, last year.
Got it.
Is there some information? So the question is there some information in the school mission and focus summary that Fund for the Arts wants to see that can help improve the chances of receiving a grant? No. So just what most schools do have, like a mission statement or, their value statement. We just want to see that. We just want some information on the school. A lot of, because of some of the work that I've done, I'm familiar with a lot of the schools, but we've got a new president and CEO. His name is Andre Guess, if you've not had the pleasure of meeting or hearing him speak yet. So stuff like that is just helpful for the other folks who see this information, kind of have like some context of who's applying. So great question in the chat. That is all that is in the chat. So if does anyone, Megan, I might need you to help clarify. So your programs are mostly 1 and 2 classrooms. How do you decide which students get to benefit from these programs when I have 500 students to choose from? Megan, could you elaborate on that question for me? Sorry to put you on the spot. I know you put that in the chat. Megan, if you're talking, you are on mute. I'm sorry if you're not able to do audio.
I might be able to slightly elaborate. I'm assuming Megan is a special area teacher and I'm also a special area teacher, so I see all of the students in the school. What I'm assuming, no, she can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm assuming she's saying, how do you decide which classes to choose from when you work with all the students? And maybe she's more specifically saying, if I have 3 or 4 classes in each grade level, how do I choose 1 or 2 of those specific classes? Or could it go to all 4 of those classes in 3rd grade?
She is asking all the above. I'm asking all of those questions.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yes.
So, yeah, you can apply for all of them. I don't, I mean, in terms of how we get a lot of special, like gifted and talented, we've, a lot of like counselors, even we get a lot of non-classroom specific teachers, like not grade level teachers who apply. I don't actually know how they personally come to those decisions, but I have seen them apply for any and all. But if you are trying to narrow it down, just trying to think what would be most helpful for you.
There are some of them that have like 300 kids, and so you would just have to coordinate that. And then there's some that are smaller that you could maybe select a smaller group. Like I know our kindergarten group, I mean, and I'm a little different. Yes, I am a special area teacher, but in my school, we only have 2 classes per grade. So at a maximum, there's about 50 kids per grade. So it is a little easier there, but there are ones that have like 300 kids could attend. So you could have K through 2 do that one, and then another one do 3 through 5 and split it up that way.
That sounds good. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Julie, for helping me out there. Because I had a thought and then it just escaped my brain. But yeah, a lot of the awards you'll see are awarded to like up to 500 students. That's what I was going to say. That's one of the another big reason why we ask for liaisons. So that way you can talk to your classroom teachers to see what is the need. Like, because you all know what the need is more than I do. You all are in the school doing the work every single day. So it really can come out of a conversation as well between your actual classroom teachers, like the folks who are who could utilize that content. So whether that happen, what kind of ever meetings you all have going on right now, or special time, or if it's an email, that could help you narrow down as well. But yeah, back to Julie's point, we don't just award like 30 or 60 students. A lot of the awards that come through are in the hundreds. I will say we do try to spread out awards across all grade levels. So if you're applying for like 3rd grade over and over and over again, you might have better luck thinking through, not to say that 3rd grade couldn't get funded more than once, because it could. It could be all of them. I mean, you just don't know. It really comes down to what the restrictions on the dollars are. But I will say there are better chances of if you're applying for, okay, this experience is going to benefit all the grade levels in my school. Those have a higher chance of getting funded because the scope and the reach is much broader. Or if you have submitted 5 applications and you've got, this offering is going to serve K and 1, this one's going to do 2 and 3, this one's only going to serve 3. We're going to try to actually like piece the puzzle together in a way that maybe that one that was just for 3rd grade might not get funded, but like the other 2 that are first and whatever I said have more students, those might get funded. And that's not, I mean, I would not even take that. I wouldn't even get married to that statement. I would just say like sometimes it does come down to that, but then sometimes you might get all 3 and 3rd grade gets two offerings. So it really is just a puzzle. I wish I had a secret sauce for you, but the biggest thing I can say is just apply for everything that you want to apply for and dream big. I mean, that's, because it's very likely it could get funded. So apply for the 500 students, check in with your teachers to see what, they're kind of wanting or needing in their classes. What else? Megan, did that help at all?
Yes, that completely answered my question.
Great. Sorry, I was a little slow getting there, but
no, I'm a dream big girl.
Good. All right. Do we have any other questions? I'm sorry, it is 1:02. I'm sorry, kept you over time. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach me again, grants at Fund for the Arts or jturpin@fundforthearts.org. I'm happy to help you. Even if it's a very specific question about an offering, I mean, the worst case scenario is I direct you to the arts organization, but all of those folks, all the contact information I've provided, those folks are pretty responsive. So we'll get you straightened out one way or another. So if there's nothing else, thank you all again for being here. I apologize sincerely for keeping you over time. I try not to do that. So I, again, appreciate you all, and I look forward to seeing your applications and working with you all over the upcoming year.
Thank you for the meeting.
Yeah, thanks. Happy applying.